What's up, everybody? Welcome back to your favorite New York Jets subscription podcast, Badlands. I'm your host, Joe Caporoso. Solo day of draft, audio, video version of my round one guide. It's an article I've been doing since like 2012. Unfortunately, most of our old Turn of the Jets archives are gone. You can find the version on Badlands for the past few years. I'll link to it in the description here. But generally, every day, every time it is the day of round one, I give my version of my final mock draft and what I'll be excited about and not excited about that occurs for the Jets. So I'm going to go through that very quickly here. Wanted to get some final words and thoughts in before the draft actually happens. I'm releasing this at like 1 o'clock on draft day. Hope you get to listen to draft season this morning. Hope you got to read Dalbin's latest article. He'll also have a mock draft up live before the draft starts. From a quick just PSA perspective, all of our content is going to continue to flow through Patreon for this weekend. We are doing a live YouTube broadcast at Reds. It's been awesome to see the support and the people who are going to come out and hang. I can't wait to see everybody. I'm recording this the night before, but it'll be fun to do a live version, and you'll be able to follow along live on our YouTube channel, which I'll link in the bio. But we're going to, once we finish recording, the audio of that will be right here on the feed as a podcast. And I'll put the timestamp in when we start reacting to the Jets pick if you don't want to listen to the whole buildup. So that will be your initial reaction. And then everything else throughout the weekend will just be pumping through your feed as usual. You'll get pods every few hours, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, reacting to what the Jets are doing. You'll get Connor and I in the Discord, Twitter, YouTube, all the normal places you find us. We want to keep it simple and straightforward. The only thing that's different is that we'll be at Reds tomorrow night recording. I'll be at Reds tomorrow night recording with Will and with Paul and with Steve and with Meigs. Connor's going to be on live television. But Connor and I will record together Friday morning after he sleeps for like 45 minutes after draft night, and we'll keep it moving. So round one guide. Last year, this is what I wrote. And I've actually been accurate at times with this. Last year was not one of those years. So the names I listed as the names most frequently associated with the Jets last year at where they were picking was Peter Skoronski, Paris Johnson Jr., Broderick Jones, Darnell Wright, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Cansey, Nolan Smith, Michael Mayer. Now, we know the Jets were considering a few of those names, but they ultimately took Will McDonald, a player that really like none of us expected them to take. I mean, we just didn't. I'm on Jets Twitter. I am in the Jets podcast fan space. I didn't see anybody talking about the Jets taking Will McDonald. So we listed those names out. The happiness chart, Tony Soprano on a boat smoking a cigar was going to be Skoronski, Johnson, leapfrogging Green Bay for JSN. Didn't happen. The Tony Soprano Sunday gravy smile, so happy but not quite as happy as that. Would have been just getting JSN, getting Broderick, trading down, and picking up some more picks, or taking Meyer in the first round. And then, shrug was like Darnell Wright, taking Cansey, taking Nolan Smith. So I guess you could put Will McDonald in that, because that's where I had like all the defensive players kind of stuffed in, like taking Nolan Smith, basically. I was like, the final mock I had for the Jets had them taking Skoronski. Actually didn't happen. They took Will McDonald. And then their final late round mocks, I didn't nail any of the day 3 picks. We talked a decent amount about Izzy on the podcast, so that was one we were particularly excited about. But the day 2 and 3 ones were not right. I did say that they were likely to take a good chance they would take an offensive lineman in round 2, which they did with Tippmann. And I had it listed as a chance they would take a defensive lineman in round 1, just not quite as high as offensive line. So that was last year. It wasn't pretty. I promise if you go back in the archives a few other years, it was better. But last year, man, was a curveball. This year, Jets' 10th overall pick. The odds would imply that this is a very wide open situation. This top 10 is going to be very wide open. There's going to be a lot of movement, I think, in front of the Jets, whatever they ultimately decide to do. I think when you talk about the names most associated with the Jets, the list is as extensive as I could remember it in a long time. How many different names you've heard associated with them. Brock Bowers, probably the most popular pick mocked to them. Rome Odunze, not far behind. We've heard rumors of Malik Neighbors and MHJ as trade-up targets. Brian Thomas Jr. as a trade-down target. So that's 5 different pass catchers you're regularly hearing associated with the Jets. On the offensive line, we've talked a ton about Fuaga. That's Connor's final mock pick for the Jets. We've talked a ton about Fatanu, a guy that also is a popular mock pick for the Jets. Fashanu, Joe Alt in a trade-up, J.C. Latham trading down for Mims or Guyton. We're already at like 10, 11, 12 players. Dallas Turner, if the Jets actually are going to go defense, is a name that's been mentioned. I don't think they're going to, but it's the Jets. We can't write it off. There's a lot of names out there that are being thrown out overall for them to potentially consider. So, we'll see how it shakes out. I think for me, I've been pretty consistent in that it's hard for the Jets to go wrong here. They need an offensive lineman or they need a pass catcher. They're in a great position to get one, even if they stay put at 10. I do think they will seriously look at a trade up, maybe even more so than a trade down. This is more of a time to be proactive to fill that need. The happiest you will see me is if they leave with one of the top 3 receivers. And I don't care if that's from staying put or trading up. If they leave with Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, or Rome Odunze, I'm going to be absolutely ecstatic. I will be happy if they get Brock Bowers. I will be happy if they get Brian Thomas Jr. I will be happy if they get Fuaga or Fatanu, 2 guys I like a lot. I should also throw Alt in. If they trade up and get Alt, I'll be happy to because I think he's that good. And you just figure it out, he's just that good. I just don't think that's a scenario that's likely to happen. The only scenarios I'm kind of one, don't take a defensive player. There's no justification for them taking any defensive player. Can't talk me into it. Don't try to sell me on it. I don't like the thought of trading too far down, getting down into the late 20s. This is a win now team. Don't get too cute. Stay in the top 15, top 16 if you're going to move back. I'm not sold on Latham as a guy for them. Now, he might go 5th. He's a favorite to go 5th now. Another one that Connor's been on for a while. So he might not even be there. Reaching for a guy like Mims, again, I'm not ecstatic about that. Maybe if you're trading back 7 or 8 spots, still, I'm not as jazzed up about the trade back as you can hear. I just think go get an elite guy. And I don't think it's going to cost all that much to get from 10 to 8 or 10 to 7 to do what you need to do. And I think there'll be a window in particular to get a Odunze or Neighbors. And I'm excited about that potential. So I want to be consistent. I said this when we recorded earlier this week. My final mock does have the Jets getting Rome Odunze. And I think that will come via small trade up. I candidly will likely sprinkle a little on them landing Malik Neighbors. I will probably also sprinkle a little on getting Fuaga. Those are sort of the 3 names that are kind of kicking around in my head that I think they're potentially going to leave with. I think there will be some movement from them on day 2 and day 3 to consolidate picks and be aggressive at the position that they don't land in round 1. I'm fascinated to see where these quarterbacks go. I think it's going to be chaos in the early moments of this draft, and reacting to it and following it along will be something. But for the Jets, I will go down right or wrong saying that they will leave with a playmaker on night 1. They will get a pass catcher. I'm skewing towards that over offensive line, and that is why I'm leaning Odunze and going Odunze as my final mock pick. Again, keeping an eye on Neighbors, keeping an eye on Fuaga, keeping an eye on Bowers, none of which would really shock me. But Odunze kind of feels like we'll match up to where they end up picking and the need. So that is my final mock pick for the Jets. Let's hope it's right. I got AVT right a few years ago, got Garrett Wilson right a few years ago. Got to dig deeper into the archives to some other ones I got right. Nailing draft picks is always an adventure. As I make some final wagers, I'll make sure to share them. If you haven't yet, sign up for your Underdog account now. Use promo code Badlands, get the deposit match. 1, just do the pick'ems right now for the NBA and NHL playoffs. They're awesome. But also we're going to do a bigger best ball draft right after the NFL draft, the biggest one we've done yet to really start ramping up towards the season. Want to give a big shout out to Paul. Paul is one of the hosts of Other Guys, which is where you probably most regularly hear him on the feed. But behind the scenes, one has driven our merch getting off the ground. And I know everyone's getting their quarter zips now, which is great. I will get mine, my hands on mine tomorrow. And by all early accounts, feedback is great. I know everyone's got their hats already who's bought them, and the feedback's been positive there, but it's really gave our merch and like D2C business a kick in the ass that it needed. That is not my specialty or bread and butter. I'm good at managing a podcast business, not necessarily some of the components that come with that. And he's also really done all the heavy lifting in getting this going at Reds for our draft party tomorrow or today when you're listening to this. So really appreciate his help and leadership there. And he'll be on the feed tomorrow because he's a good podcaster too. Also very excited to be podcasting and working with Steve again, who I've linked out and shared some of our previous work, but it's just a serendipitous thing that we're, got to do this 10, 11 years ago and now get to do another draft night podcast together. And his technical expertise in doing a live pod and recording like in a public place is just something that I candidly don't have, and really no one on our team has. So for him to like jump in and do that, it's greatly appreciated. I'm really excited about the future of us being able to do a live show. It will be something we come back to, myself and Connor, when Connor's a little more freed up, likely in June or July. Exactly what that looks like, we're still trying to figure it out, but there will be a version of a live show that we do that will also be available on YouTube before the season starts. And I'm excited about getting the reps here. So a lot of friendly PSAs here, but I think it's important to shout them out. And I'm excited for this weekend, man, not just night one. It'd be interesting to see how the Jets maneuver around with the 2 fourth-round picks, what quarterback they ultimately end up with. Is it Pratt or someone we're not talking about enough? It's going to be an interesting, fun weekend for Jet fans, and there's no world we're not going to leave feeling better about the roster. I do think most people will be very happy with what happens tonight. It's going to really be hard not to, because it's just hard to mess this up with where they're positioned and where their needs are. So my final pick, hopefully it gets clipped and it's right, is Rome Odunze for the Jets. I will talk to everyone tomorrow. Look out for all the content at Badlands. It's patreon.com/BadlandsTOJ. If you're watching on YouTube, you're getting a small sliver of the content, but you're missing like 70% of it. So just go over to the Patreon to get everything. Thank you, and we'll talk to you soon.